A pleasant good morning to everyone, and welcome once again to another episode of the Coles Brown Show, heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. Coming up on today's show, guest menu looks like this. He'll join me in hour number one, and I must be on good behavior today, because if not, he won't join me. But I appreciate every week talking with Dr. Michael Prince. He'll join me throughout the show, but especially in hour number one. Then we'll wrap up basketball conversation with Coach Van Pettaway. He's the former men's basketball coach at Alabama A&M. I always look forward to exchanging ideas and talking with Coach Van Pettaway, a wealth of knowledge and knows his basketball. One of my favorite coaches of all time in the NCAA basketball. Then after 2 weeks, a 2-week vacation, I'll put it that way, Charles Edmond of the Alcorn State Radio Network will join me. I'm sure he has some thoughts on his basketball season. Also, get into baseball in the Southwestern Athletic Conference. So those are the guests on today's show. Here's what's trending on this week's episode of the Coles Brown Show. Texas Southern and Hampton University are in the semifinals of the College Insider Tournament. Historical. I got a wonderful text message today. I'm going to read it. It kind of puts in light what's going on as far as a historic run for Texas Southern of the Southwestern Athletic Conference and Hampton University. Also, I'll talk with Coach Pettaway, who is on, I believe, he's affiliated with the CIT, I'll put it that way. Selection committee. Thank you to Dr. Prince in the background there. Get his thoughts on it. This is a wonderful opportunity. It's historic, as I just stated, and it's something to build on the future. Of course, the NCAA is always goal number one, but the CIT, the NIT, WNIT are rewards for postseason, so we don't want to make light of that, but historic in itself. Prairie View A&M, get the music ready, I guess. You guys had Prairie View A&M buried for dead, but lo and behold, they shocked Southern University, and that's the word I put in, shocked Southern University in baseball. Now, I'm not going to make any excuses. A rain delay, shocking rain in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. But PV gets it done, 10-6 over Southern in baseball. Will the Prairie View A&M alums and supporters now feel a little bit better about the Prairie View A&M baseball program? Somehow, speaking for myself, I think not. But we shall see. Southern University spring game is set for 1 p.m. today. Yours truly will be in attendance. A start to the 2019 football season, yes. I'm saying it. I'm putting it that way. The spring game. I got some comments I want to give to you from Coach Odoms. And, of course, as always, if you have any questions, most of you pretty much like to interact with me on Facebook Messenger. And you can reach me at the Coles Brown Show at gmail.com. And finally, Kevin Nickelberry resigns as Howard's basketball coach. So there are going to be some openings at Mississippi Valley State. Howard, it's always interesting in black college athletics and athletics in general. Last week, I got a chance to see Southern University baseball for the first time. And it was the Saturday game, 3 p.m., outstanding crowds, all three games, only able to attend one. But pitching was at a premium for both teams. Southern, 15-13. It was like back and forth. Both teams pitching, they were not at their best. Coach Jackson even said so. But you're able to pull out a sweep against your arch rival, no matter what sport it is. 18-8 Friday, 15-13 Saturday, and then they close it out 13-8. A lot of discussions on social media about Coach Garrett Jackson, baseball coach at Southern University. I simply put on a post, give this guy a new contract ASAP. Now, let me stop right there because I know some of you are going to say, not the franchise, Carlos Brown, in the middle of the season. Well, get it done, because I'm getting these emails and text messages about, to the effect, you better take care of Coach Jackson, because if you don't, somebody else will. I don't take that lightly. I'm speaking as I'm the director of athletics at Southern University. No, I'm just a host of a sports talk radio show. But I would get it done ASAP. Last year of his contract, a 2-year contract. I would get it done if I'm the director of athletics at Southern University, Coach Banks. I would get it done. But Grambling State, they look disappointed, of course, losing to your rival. But, man, a sweep for Southern University. And at that point, 8-1 in conference, just doing well. Just doing well. Now on a 3-game losing streak. Midweek game to UNO, they lost 9-6. Northwestern State 6-3. But let me tell you something. That Northwestern State baseball team, a competitive game by Southern University, they defeated LSU. UNO is led by a former LSU player. Not chopped liver, if you understand what I'm saying as far as baseball. And I know baseball is an interesting, thinking man's game. And then losing to Prairie View last night, 10-6. I'm going to make a prediction right now. Southern bounces back and takes the next 2 baseball games. If not, somebody's going to be on a rampage next week. So, baseball, this Southern University baseball team is a lot improved. They've improved a lot. And in the period of 1 year, they've made this much progress. With that being said, someone who knows a lot about baseball, I want to pick his brain on, can you make, or how rare is that? Or has he seen it before where a team can make that much improvement in 1 year? Good morning to you, Brother Prince.
Good morning, my brother. How are you this morning, man?
I'm doing fine.
How about them Panthers, baby?
Well, give credit to Prairie View A&M. Some guys, and I won't mention names, had them left for dead.
Well, some people think
maybe rightfully so. But then they come and defeat the number 1 team in the. Would you agree? The number 1 team in the conference right now?
Well, I mean, the record would indicate that. But one thing that
wait a minute. I understand the record. It's all right if you don't think they're the best team in the conference right now, but seriously, you think they're one of the top team or not?
Yeah, I just said that.
Well, no, but I just heard something about that's what the record indicates. I want to know what the baseball guru knows.
Well, the record indicates, as I was saying, that they are one of the better teams in the conference as we speak right now. And deservedly so. A much improved team. Baseball savvy leadership at the coaching position. I gave you everything. You want to pick a fight early on today, man. We ain't even got started good. You picking fights.
No, I just want to make sure I heard it clearly.
Let me clear my throat. Yes, Southern's a vastly improved program, and it's exciting from a baseball's lover and avid lover position to see that. But it's also great to see that Prairie View was able to get this Friday win, and that's what has been part of the woes for Prairie View baseball from the beginning, in particular on the road. That Friday game has always been an elusive game, and psychologically, in particular on the road, if you can get that first game, it kind of starts making the thought pattern much more clearer, because now you say, okay, we know we can beat these guys. We got this first game. So now, in a slight way, the pressure reverses back to the Jags. And I'm hoping that the Panthers can continue to see it through.
You know, Coach Jackson, earlier in the week, midweek, said that he was kind of concerned this could be that word trap game.
Yeah, no doubt. It's a trap game. And it's always going to be like that.
But you have to look at each time you go out on that field. You have to think that the opposing team, they're capable of beating you if you don't bring your A game. And a young team, but no excuse. None.
No.
PV came in and defeated Southern 10-6, and kudos to Prairie View A&M.
Yes, sir. Now, I was on a rant this week. Can you imagine that? Me being on a rant. And
yeah, I can a little bit. Mm-hmm.
And part of my rant was this. Prairie View had won 3 conference series, out of 27 series since the leadership position of Coach Riggins being at the manager's position. But of those 3 series that the Panthers had won, 2 of those series were against the Southern Jags.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. As I pull up the standings, tied with what? Texas Southern? Southern 8-2 in the Western Division. Grambling State 7-5. Prairie View 5-5. Texas Southern 5-5, and UAPB. So baseball is a very, very interesting game.
Right. And
maybe people were jumping the gun a little bit, after that 34-2 loss. If the playoffs started, next week, PV's in it.
Well, here's the thing I was not upset about the 34-2 loss. Now, don't get me wrong, I wasn't turning cartwheels and flips, but the 34-2 loss, that happens from time to time in sports. Sometimes things just get out of control and there's no turning around, and you just got to get through it. What my venom was coming from was that in the 3 years, the 4 years now, this is year number 4. In the 4 years that we've had the leadership position at baseball, we're 2-16 against Texas Southern. 2-16. That's not acceptable.
No, but when we look at it, the races, as they say, not won by the swiftest, but the one who endures
to the end. Yeah,
then,
but that's not enduring, brother. Out of 18 games, you win 2. That's 11%. That's not enduring.
But I understand. But I'm thinking about if they go on to make the tournament.
Well,
this year,
I mean,
I'm wondering if you tell me. It sounds like maybe it still won't make the PV Nation happy.
Well, I mean, winning a tournament game, that's one of those deceptive type deals, if that makes any sense. Because, I mean, baseball is baseball. Anything can happen on any given day. But it's about the consistency of doing it. I can beat you 2 out of 10 times. It doesn't mean that I'm better than you. I just happen to find my way through 2 out of those 10 times. I'm still 2-8 against you, which theoretically would make you the better team, the better person than whatever it is we're competing at. So a tournament win does help because you got to win one in order to advance. But you got to look at the quality of the opponent that you played against, and what did you really gain out of it. And I've seen people keep their livelihoods flowing because they have tournament success. And my question is, if you can have success in the tournament, why can't you have it consistently during the regular season? Because to me, and I'm not saying this to discredit anything or anybody. You ask me, and here it is. Sometimes it could appear to be as fool's gold because people get hot in the tournament. We've seen it in the March Madness. We've seen it in other baseball tournament play. You see it all across the board. So if I'm 3-15 and I happen to get hot, you 15-3, and I beat you, which is another unbalance. If I come through the losers bracket, you've been beating everybody's tail in the winners bracket. We meet at the SWAC Tournament Baseball Championship. All I got to do is win one game. Find a way to win one game, and I'm representing the conference. That doesn't mean I was the best team. I was the hottest team during tournament play.
I get you. Prairie View fans still are not going to be happy. They won't unless they happen to win the tournament or catch fire and just sweep through. The chances of that happening are probably less than 5%.
Ho. Give me a fighter's chance, man. 5%? 5%?
Okay, 10. Final offer.
Oh, my goodness. Okay.
But, anything can happen. But I think just hearing from the different PV followers, I think they would be happy if at the end of the season it's announced that they're going in a different direction.
I'm pretty sure that some powers that would invite that opportunity. I'm not going to doubt that one way or the other. But can I say one thing before we go any further today? I am not an advocate of anyone getting relieved of duty because I know this thing goes beyond X's and O's. We're talking about people's livelihoods, this, that, and the other. But one thing I do need to clarify, and I think you might agree with me even on today with this one. When a person decides to go into the livelihood of coaching, they have to embrace every aspect of that, the good, the bad, and the ugly. You're going to be the darling when you're first brought to whatever organization you're coming to represent. And if it's not working the way they brought you in, then guess what? The honeymoon gets over extremely quick, and people start looking and voicing their unsettledties about the direction in which whatever that program is headed in. And I think a lot of people get the hairs crossed, coaches, fans, and players. I will respect the position of any coach, even if they were coaching tiddlywinks, because they are that coach at that particular position in the organization. That doesn't mean that we have to eat lunch every week. It doesn't mean that we have to talk and text all the time. And I think people get their personal feelings involved with the business decisions. That person, male or female, was brought to this organization to win games. Yes, we know that the students are there to graduate and deservedly they're doing their part. But a coach is hired to win games. You can have a successful graduation rate. That is wonderful. Hooray, hooray. But you are relieved of duties because you're not getting it done with wins and losses. Now, if you happen to double up and not have a successful graduation rate, that's going to help accelerate you out the front door. So let's not get personal with stuff. Let's just look at the facts, the bottom line. If you're not getting it done, it's time for both parties to admit, okay, we took a chance. It didn't come out exactly the way we thought it would. It's time that we would move forward. and move from there.
We appreciate your effort here.
Yeah.
We wish you the best going forward in whatever your next adventure is before you. And, you could dress it up a little bit better than that, but you get the point. Your next endeavor. And that's the way you look at it. 10:19, let's take a break. When we come back, it'll be more of the Carlos Brown Show, heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com.
One voice. It can get the point across, but it only carries so far. Add a voice. It's richer, louder, but that has limits too. Add a third voice. It's even more powerful. Add another, and many, many more. And we are stronger than ever. That's the power of a community coalition. They help community groups, faith groups, civic organizations, PTAs, employers, and many others in your community organize their resources and focus them where they're needed most, like fighting to keep kids away from drugs. Ask a group that you belong to if they should belong to a community coalition. It's easy to get involved. Visit helpyourcommunity.org and they'll tell you exactly how your group can help. That's helpyourcommunity.org, because you get more when we get together. Brought to you by the Office of National Drug Control Policy and the Ad Council.
As a dad, you'll probably spend years teaching your son how to hit a baseball, how to throw a tight spiral and hit a receiver, how to spring off a diving board and hit the water, how to hit a 1-wood and a 9-iron, how to hit the bullseye, how to hit the strike zone, hit a jump shot, hit the open man, hit the hockey net, and maybe the most challenging of all, how to hit the books. But the question is this: how much time will you spend teaching him what not to hit? Teach your son early and often that all violence against women is wrong. For tips on what to say, visit endabuse.org. Brought to you by the Family Violence Prevention Fund, the Waite Institute for Violence Prevention, the Ad Council, and this station.
Hello, this is Lonzo Hardy, Vice President of the SWAC Alumni Association. The SWAC Alumni Association is an organization founded in 1999 with the goal of enhancing the great legacy of excellence in the SWAC, as well as preserving the athletic heritage of the SWAC. Its membership is open to former athletes, as well as current and former coaches, assistant coaches, athletic administrators, referees, employees of conference member institutions, as well as fans of SWAC sports. Individuals interested in gaining membership can contact the organization's president, Roscoe Nance, at 509 Worcester Street in Herndon, Virginia, 20170. Annually, the SWAC Alumni Association holds a Legends Award in which Lifetime Achievement Awards are presented. Occasionally, a legend of the conference is honored in a roast, and annually 1 or 2 former student athletes are presented degree completion scholarship awards. Contact the organization's president, Roscoe Nance, at 509 Worcester Street in Herndon, Virginia, 20170.
Be the one with courage to fight child abuse.
All Texans must find the courage to fight child abuse.
Learn the signs and symptoms and report suspected abuse to appropriate authorities.
Learn and know these warning signs.
A child who undergoes changes in behavior, appetite, or routine.
Watch for unexplained injuries, a change in academic performance, or loss of interest by a child in regular activities.
Trust your instincts. If you suspect something, do something.
If you believe a child is in an abusive situation, please call the Texas Abuse Hotline at 1-800-252-5400.
Be the one with courage. To find your local Children's Advocacy Center, visit onewithcourage.org.
On behalf of children, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome back to this week's episode of the Carlos Brown Show, heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. Could you, if those who are listening, spread the word? Go to the Open Mic Broadcast Network and click on the audio link. You'll be able to hear the show live through that link. We will work on the other link to my Facebook page. So go to the Open Mic Broadcast Network link, and we're going to try to post that on the Carlos Brown Show Facebook page, so you can click on that. But for now, I'll go to the Open Mic Broadcast Network and click on the link, and you can hear the Carlos Brown Show live. Appreciate your understanding on that matter. Welcome back to the Carlos Brown Show. In the last segment, we were talking about several things: Texas Southern and Hampton University in the semifinals of the CIT tournament, which is College Insiders Tournament. That's historic in itself. And here's from a listener, text message I got that I would like to read to you. Under the athletic leadership of Vice President of Intercollegiate Athletics, Kevin Granger, this is the first time the TSU Tigers have earned multiple wins in a postseason tournament since joining the NCAA Division I in 1978. For the Tigers men's basketball program, this is the longest postseason run since 1977, and winning the NAIA Tournament National Championship under legendary coach Robert Bob Moreland and the Chuck Taylor MVP Alonzo Bradley. Head coach Johnny Jones, and leading the Tigers to a win in the quarterfinals of the College Insider Tournament. The Texas Southern Tigers and the Hampton Pirates become the first two HBCUs to win 3 tournament postseason games at the NCAA Division I level. Congratulations to the basketball coaching staff and student athletes. And once again, the Texas Southern and Hampton University in the semifinals. And some will say it's an opportunity for both Texas Southern and Hampton to make it in the finals. And as I stated earlier in the show, this is an opportunity now, which you have the CIT and the WNIT. The NIT is an opportunity for HBCUs to have an opportunity. The NCAA is still the number one goal, but there are other goals out there. And what does this do right now for recruiting students? I'm sure it's going to be an uptick. You win again, and I did pull up College Insider action in the semifinals. It'll be Hampton 18-16 versus Marshall, 21-14, 7 p.m. That's Tuesday, and Texas Southern 24-13 versus Green Bay. So the championship will be Thursday. They play a lot of basketball, and Texas Southern doing it with a limited number of players. Just, you have to give credit what credit is due. And that's credit in the historic, what they've been able to do. And now there's another opportunity, as I stated earlier. This will be a nice notch on the resume. And I'm pretty sure it's going to help with enrollment. Because it's been proven, come off championships, enrollment increases. And at the end of the day, it's about the students and the student athletes. So, appreciate that. Once again, go to the Open Mic Broadcast Network, and you can click on the audio live link, and you'll be able to hear the show. Open Mic Broadcast Network, Spreaker.com. In a minute, I'm going to try to post it on so you'll be able to hear. So we appreciate your understanding. Once again, we've also talked about Prairie View A&M, shocking Southern University in baseball. We haven't talked much, if any, really not any, on Southern University and the spring football game that's coming up. And University of Alabama A&M, they're also having their spring game today. But if you look at it, it's an opportunity. Just here's my take. You don't want to get any injuries. You want to see, and you won't see, from my experience in the spring game, you won't see the whole offensive and the defensive playbook open up. It'll just be things that they've worked on. For Southern University on offense, you know who your starters are, but you definitely want to see Skelton. Has he progressed as far as not always going for the home run and throwing the football, but from throwing the football, has he gotten better? Makes his progressions. Intermediate routes, getting the ball into other playmakers' hands. And where he doesn't have to feel like he has to win the ball game by himself. Backup quarterback, I think John Lampley it's his job to lose. Defensively, it comes down to this. Simply put, must be consistent in stopping the run. And everybody knows in the conference, you run right up the gut, right up the middle on Southern. At least most teams. It's a few that didn't learn that lesson, and they paid the price for it. But it's no secret. Much improvement last year for Southern University. For those are things that you want to work. There's improvement that has to be made. 9 starters on offense, 9 on defense. You don't start the season off with an FBS team, but you start off with an FCS opponent. Hey, I've talked to several people. It's Atlanta a bus. And I'm sure Alcorn, Jackson State, Prairie View, they all want to have something to say. As far as we want to stop that train. We're trying to get to Atlanta and the Celebration Bowl. But those are just kind of some of the things, depth, but stopping the run consistently, offensively, Skelton. And I know people say, well, he was spectacular. Yeah, athleticism, great athlete. But you could see flashes of he can make the throws. He has ability to make it. But that's the next step in his progression. Can he make those intermediate routes? If he goes to his first read, that's not there. Can he go? Does he have the patience to go to his second, third? Well, will he have the time? You've got an O-line that's experienced coming back. It is going to be very, very interesting to see today some progress in the spring football game. And it leads into 2019 football season. Coach Odoms is set as far as him being at Southern University. There's no speculation like at the end of last season and even before then. He's there. He'll be there for a few more years. And if things go the way that some think it will, he'll be there even longer. But you just got to play hard, compete, and it would help to get some championships in there. But it just depends on what are your goals. What is your benchmark? Is it just to be competitive? Second place is not bad. You can't win a championship every year, although we've seen it in the past in football and certain sports. What will happen? But that's my quick take. We'll get back into some more of spring football as far as what Coach Odoms has to say about what does he expect from the spring game. I think he expects to be productive and get out of there with no injuries. That's the main thing. Number one, no injuries. Number two, stop the run consistently. Well, it won't be the only goals, but it's for the spring game. Coach Odoms feels like the secondary, we've had some guys that did very well. He's talking about in the spring practice so far. He says Benjamin Harris had an outstanding scrimmage last Saturday. He made some plays, along with Chase Foster, Robert Rahim, Jordan Eastland, and Glenn Brown. They're ready to step up to the plate and are going to be ready for the starting corners for us. So I think now at this point, coaches have an idea, especially with a lot of returning talent and starters back. They know who their starters are going to be. In the spring game, you want to see some of the backups, and there'll be some ones versus ones, one on offense, one versus the defense. You'll have some twos on twos, and then you'll get past some of the third string. Wow, you actually got a third string? Yeah, there's depth. You want to see how those guys compete. I really believe that some of the biggest battles are going to be going into fall camp is backups in case of injuries, and you want your backups to be competitive. You really do. Coach Odoms, and I quote, called the spring very competitive and spirited through the past 4 weeks. The experience returning showed up on both the offense and the defense and had high points, which the opposite side responded. So in other words, one practice, one scrimmage, the offense got the better of the defense. You want to see, will the defense respond? And how will they come back the next practice and the next scrimmage? It's all about being competitive. And there was an old saying, every year, although I know who my starters are, every position is open because I want to see some competitiveness. I want to see who's going to compete. And Coach Odoms says we're going to get in and get out with this scrimmage. I really believe that now, I say you win it for the future. Yeah, that's fine. But the pieces are in place. You want to see success quicker than the future. So what am I saying? Do I expect Southern to compete for a championship? Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. 2019? Yes. 2020? Yes. 2021? Yes. Now, is that a realistic goal to win championships in 19, 20, and 21? Time will tell. But you definitely have to be competitive. I know you're injury away sometimes for goals to be kind of blemished. So you're hoping everything will go all right. You really do. If you want to get involved in the conversation, you can hit me up on Facebook Messenger or Facebook. And don't forget, the Open Mic Broadcast Network, Spreaker.com. Click on the Listen Live audio link. Going to take another timeout, 10:38. Going to try to visit next with Coach Van Pettaway. Kind of wrap up the Southwestern Athletic Conference basketball season. No, not just yet. Texas Southern, still in it. Hampton University, still in it. We'll get Coach Pettaway's thoughts on the great run by Texas Southern, Hampton, Southwestern Athletic Conference is wrapped up, but I'll get his thoughts on that, and then we'll kind of get his opinion on moving forward for next year. You're simply listening to the Carlos Brown Show on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. I'll be right back after this quick timeout.
I present to you 3 of the fiercest subjects ever assembled in the cage of doom. First, the brain-wrenching behemoth Algebra 2, weighing in at a mind-boggling 800 pounds. Foreign languages! The multilingual international sensation capable of tossing you clear across the Atlantic. And finally, biology. More ferocious than formaldehyde, she'll dissect you 1 chromosome at a time. Who among you will step up to their challenge?
Yeah, I'll do it. Me too. I'm in. Sign me up.
Take on the tough classes now. You need them to prepare for college. Find out which classes you need at knowhowtogo.org.
Brought to you by the American Council on Education, Lumina Foundation for Education, and the Ad Council.
Chris, can you put the video game controller down for a second?
I can talk and play. Oh, I'm totally annihilating this punk kid in Nebraska.
I just feel like you're not acting like a grown-up in our relationship.
Am too.
Well, you still ride your skateboard to work, there's the comic book collection, the race car bed.
Look, I'm young at heart, but I put money into my 401k every paycheck. I picked up a few savings tips at feedthepig.org. I have control of my financial life now, and that feels pretty grown up.
Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. Putting some money from every paycheck into a savings account or contributing to your 401k can make a big difference later. For free ideas and easy tips on ways to save, go to feedthepig.org. That's feedthepig.org.
So, I bet I look like a grown-up to you now.
Well, except for the footy pajamas, I'd have to agree.
This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
One voice. It can get the point across, but it only carries so far. Add a voice. It's richer, louder, but that has limits too. Add a third voice. It's even more powerful. Add another, and many, many more. And we are stronger than ever. That's the power of a community coalition. They help community groups, faith groups, civic organizations, PTAs, employers, and many others in your community organize their resources and focus them where they're needed most, like fighting to keep kids away from drugs. Ask a group that you belong to if they should belong to a community coalition. It's easy to get involved. Visit helpyourcommunity.org and they'll tell you exactly how your group can help. That's helpyourcommunity.org, because you get more when we get together. Brought to you by the Office of National Drug Control Policy and the Ad Council.
Drivers and bicyclists both have the right to be on the road and travel safely. And when we're on the road together, safety is a shared responsibility. State law requires drivers to maintain at least 3 feet of clearance when passing bicyclists. And bicyclists should always ride with the direction of traffic and follow all traffic signals. It's safer. It's courteous. It's the law. A message from the Regional Planning Commission Pedestrian and Bicycle Program.
Broadcasters come into our lives on radio and TV, bringing us information and entertainment. Broadcasters are there for us, but who is there for them when they fall on hard times? The Broadcasters Foundation of America provides financial assistance to broadcasters in acute need due to a critical illness, accident, or other serious misfortune. If you know of a broadcaster on the air or behind the scenes who may need our help, please share our message. Visit broadcastersfoundation.org.
Welcome back to this week's edition of the Carlos Brown Show, heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. Once again, it's a pleasure, as always, to visit with Coach Van Pettaway, former men's basketball coach at Alabama A&M. Coach, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning. Good morning. How you guys doing?
I'm doing fine. How about yourself?
Well, we're hanging in here, waiting on the weather to give us a break so we can get outside today.
Okay. I understand about the weather. Partly cloudy here in the capital city of Louisiana. Coach, want to just kind of talk with you about some historic going on as far as Hampton University in the CIT semifinals and Texas Southern University in the CIT semifinals. Get your thoughts on what they've accomplished in this postseason.
I think it's been great for HBCU basketball. I knew that Texas Southern had a great team. Hampton is playing their first year in a new league, and then they get an invite, and both of them are representing well. I think Texas Southern has what it takes to win the whole thing. As long as they continue to play like they're playing and realize the guy that brought them to the dance is Cones, as long as they keep that in mind, I think they'll be okay.
Now, Coach, for those who are listening in, perhaps maybe for the first time, can you talk about, again, you being, and help me out here, on the selection committee for the CIT?
Oh, yes. I've been in that position, I think, for 7 or 8 years now. Joe Dwyer puts this tournament together, and not only does he do the tournament, but he recognizes coaches and players on the Division I level, both Power 5 and mid-majors. So he's a guy who loves basketball, and he and his wife, they put a lot into this, and this tournament has been going on for years. I think Alabama State has participated before out of the SWAC, and it's a great tournament, and it gives the teams an opportunity to continue playing. See, this is like cheating the system when you play in a postseason tournament, because you get a chance to keep to have your players. It's like a spring football for basketball. The coaches get a chance to continue working with guys, especially the guys that they're going to have for next year. Gives your team continuity, and these two teams for HBCUs are doing an outstanding job.
Yeah, and because we've talked about it earlier in the show, it's historic in its nature itself, being able to make it this far is another opportunity for HBCUs to participate in the postseason, as you stated, more practice time, develop younger players. Is there a great chance, though? I know they both got to take care of business, but how realistic is it that maybe Hampton plays Texas Southern for the CIT tournament?
I'm hoping. I'm hoping that happens. I didn't want to say it publicly, but it's been on my heart as they both continue to advance. So there's a good possibility that we could have a HBCU national championship game. Because they both certainly have an opportunity. They both on the road, but they have already proven that they can win on the road. So it's a good possibility.
We visit with Coach Van Pettaway, former men's head basketball coach at Alabama A&M. Now, Coach, I'm putting you back in the coach's role, head coaches. You're out of retirement. Let's say you're the head coach. We'll just say either Hampton or Texas Southern. You've already done so well. You can use that for increasing enrollment and also recruiting for your team. But either one of them wins the championship, how much does that springboard them to next year? I think I know the answer.
I think it really works because your kids are more motivated. They've had something to play for. They have achieved a championship. And it just gives you momentum going into the off season. It helps you in recruiting because you can show guys that, hey, if you come here, we can make it to postseason play. You can be recognized. You can be seen. You can continue playing. And I think it's a great recruiting tool. And I think both schools will have an opportunity to take advantage of this. And then you cannot measure how much it is to keep your team together and continue playing this time of year, because not only do you have the practices, you got real-time game situations that you're putting your kids through, and all that is going to do is just help you in next year, because now you got you got kids who have experienced this. They know what it's about, and you get more playing time for those returning players. And I think that's a great combination.
Got a question that Dr. Michael Prince wants to ask Coach Van Pettaway. So, Dr. Prince, you have the floor.
All right, Coach, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing fine, Doc.
All right. Well, look, it's a twofold. The first thing, because the way that the tournament is structured, I wanted you to explain, how the teams become hosts, because it's a unique situation that Texas Southern and Hampton end up meeting in this championship game. Neither one of those teams will host it. And number one part of this question is, where would your championship game be played? And then how is travel accommodated for those teams on the road?
Well, the championship, whoever, one of the teams that are in the championship, they will be given an opportunity to host the game. It'll go to the highest seed. The highest remaining seed will have an opportunity to host the game. Now, if they don't want to host, it'll go to the other team. So that's why the championship play. And then in terms of travel, it's just like regular travel during the rest of during the year. The CIT, they provide the funds for the travel. So that's why I'm saying it's a win-win situation for whatever school that participates. And we've had some schools in the past now that have been invited, but for whatever reasons they don't participate.
Well,
Jackson State, they jumped at the opportunity. And like I told you earlier, I know Alabama State has participated before. So it's a great tournament. It has not been out there that long, only about 9 years. But the people that put it on, Joe Dwyer and his wife, Angela, they do an outstanding job for college basketball, period.
No doubt about it. I've find myself, because of the interest that I have with, of course, Grambling and Texas Southern being in it, I find myself more intrigued with it than the actual NCAA tournaments. Very competitive games, and they've been handled and ran on a very high quality and professional level. So it's been a great product.
Right. It's always been that way, and that's why he also the College Insiders, they do a mid-major poll. They rank teams during the course of the year. And I used to be one of the voting people on that ranking team, but I was doing that while I was still active as a coach, and that became a bit too much for me. But they do an outstanding job, and my hat's off to them. And anytime that a team can get an opportunity to play or continue their season, I think it's great for your players and the coaches. So I'm hoping that both of them get an opportunity to win their games. I think they play again on Tuesday, and I hope they get an opportunity to advance. By that time, I will be headed out to Minnesota for our clinic.
Boy, it'll be interesting. Hypothetically, let's just say it's Texas Southern and Hampton. I'm sure Texas Southern would host.
Right.
I would think, and boy, that would be I believe even Dr. Prince would be on his way.
I have to mount up the old horse and buggy, man, and make that trek on in town. Yeah, that would be pretty exciting.
Mm-hmm.
That would be
nice. And seeing the success, Texas Southern and Hampton, I'm kind of like Dr. Prince. Now, I didn't pay as much attention to the CIT before, but now I think that's going to change. I think it's an extra opportunity.
Right. Well, I've always known about it, and like I said, I've participated for years. They also did a thing where they ranked the best dressed coaches in the conferences. Because I can remember Coach Joe winning. I can remember Coach Striblin winning one year, and then the one year that I won best dressed, Coach Striblin he undressed me. Yeah, he said they cheated. They had to be on something for me to win over him. But they do a lot of interesting things for college basketball. And to be honest, a lot of people, they didn't know about the CIT. They didn't know about College Insider because they had one of the best luncheons that was out at the Final Fours. For years, they brought all the award winners, they brought them and the players to this outstanding luncheon that they would give every year. But for the last 2 years, they have not done a luncheon. But they have invested a lot of time and a lot of money into this. And I guess one of the highlights that I've always enjoyed, they would have on Saturday morning of the semifinal games, they would always host a Legends luncheon. And that's where I got a chance to meet guys that Coach Jobe was invited every year. You had Hugh Durham. You had all these coaches that are considered legends. They were at that lunch, that breakfast, and I was invited because I always had Coach Jobe. He and I were always roommates, so I made sure that he got where he was supposed to be. So I was always a part of that, and I was happy to be a part of that. And to meet Lute Olson and to sit and talk, shop with him and some of the other great coaches, it always was fantastic for me.
I would agree, and boy, Lafayette Stribling, that brings back memories. I've seen a silver color suit, matching hat and shoes. I thought I saw, aluminum foil has a certain color to it. I'm gonna tell you, and you know what? Not only a sharp, flamboyant dresser, but a nice guy. I interviewed him years ago.
Yeah. He's funny too. Now he was a comedian. He was a comedian. Yeah, if you got a chance to be around Coach Stribling, I'm talking about in a social setting. Now I'm not talking about when it's in between them lines. It's time to go to war, boy. But he's a great guy, and that's what I liked about the SWAC. I guess that's why I'm still involved, because when I got in the SWAC, all those guys were there. They took me under their wings, and I had an opportunity to learn and sit and listen. And I tell any young coach, just sit around these guys sometime and listen. I always did that at the Final Four. That's how I met John McClendon, Big House Gaines, Coach Chaney, Coach Thompson. I met them in my 20s, just sitting around, just listening. I didn't talk. I wanted to learn. I would just sit and listen.
Wow.
And that's what really helped me with this journey.
Now, you mentioned Chaney. John Chaney?
Yes.
Now you're going to laugh. You may laugh at this, but when I used to see you come to the F.G. Clark Activity Center, because I never got a chance to go to Elmore Gymnasium, but your passion and your demeanor courtside, it reminded me of Chaney. Can be tough as nails, but love their kids.
Correct. And that's that was me. That's the way I coached, and I think that helped me to be successful. Now, while you're talking about that, they let Avery Johnson go at Alabama, but they replaced him with a guy that coaches the exact same way.
The same way as Avery or Chaney?
No, Chaney and Van Pettaway. Right. This guy coaches just like us. This guy coaches just like us in terms of being on that sideline, into the games, being energetic, that kind of thing. And that's who they hired at the University of Alabama, because one of the things that they felt is that the kids, the passion was not there. So they wanted a coach who had the passion.
Yeah, coming from the University of Buffalo.
Passion. Right, correct.
Yeah, up-tempo, Oates, I believe, up-tempo.
Up-tempo, but the passion is what they got.
Well, passion is a good thing. How do you think? It's kind of early to see, I guess, how will he do, but based on University of Buffalo, he was able to extend and help that program get better. Isn't that what it's all about at the end of the day?
Yes, it is.
You make it, you leave in a better position than you found it, or if you found it in a good position, you want to maintain and maybe do a little bit better.
Right. Well, you know that if you stay in the game long enough, things like that are gonna happen. I thought Avery did an outstanding job. He had a winning record while he was there at University of Alabama, and I don't feel sorry for him because they gave him 8 million reasons to leave.
Yeah. And you know what? On social media, everybody's saying he's going to be all right. He's going to land back on his feet.
Right.
And 8 million reasons.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, and with his talent, he can either go back to being a color analyst, or he can become a GM, or once again he can coach again on either the collegiate or the pro level. But I really think he's going to go back to the pro level.
Yeah. Now, that's what I believe too. And I've been putting out this theory about, I've told you this last week. When Mr. Benson was alive, you would see him in their suite. The camera would show him all the time. I think, and Mrs. Benson says she's not selling the Pelicans. I think he's going to be there in some kind of affiliation. General manager.
Right, I do too. Right, correct. Some kind of capacity. I think he'll end up with the Pelicans.
And I saw him in the interview saying that that's one of the things he would like to do, get into the general manager side. So, with that being said, he'll be all right. 8 million reasons plus one.
Yeah.
He'll do all right. Well, finally, Coach, because we're running out of time here in hour number one, NCAA basketball tournament, as usual, some highs, some lows, some great games this past week. Tennessee and Purdue, I literally was like in a tennis match. A three.
Right.
Another three match.
There's been some great games. Yep.
Yeah.
Good matchups.
And some mid-majors, maybe not advancing as far as previous years, but that's still a goal to be able to be a mid-major and get to that tournament. And then now you got the CIT. So that's another extra plus.
Right. So there are plenty of postseason games that these teams can get into. And, I was one of the people that agreed with the NC2A when they came back and said that if a conference champion from the 1 bid leagues was knocked off in their tournament, that they would automatically go to the NIT. That's still postseason play. Some people don't like that, but I do, because anytime you get have an opportunity for postseason play, it helps your program.
I would agree. Well, Coach, we'll probably talk again next Saturday. And
it'll be from Minneapolis. I'll leave Wednesday going out.
Well, safe travels, sir, and enjoy yourself. And you are still an ambassador to NCAA college basketball. And it's always a pleasure to talk to you and get your insight and perspective on college basketball and in the Southwestern Athletic Conference. Appreciate you very much, sir.
Okay, I look forward to talking to you guys next week.
All right, thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. That was Coach Van Penaway. As always, good things to say. Great perspective. But, boy, I tell you what, I wonder if it's still going to be in the 20s or 30s in Minnesota. My goodness.
Bring your thermals. Bring your thermals, baby, for sure.
Yeah, because I find that the older you get, I don't like cold anymore. Now give me the good old South Louisiana days, 94 degrees and the heat index of 105 with the humidity. And then, Dr. Prince, a few weeks later, you'll hear me complain about that. But it's, give me that semi-tropical weather. And that's what you find in the deep South. Well, that's it for hour number one. Hour number two, fast approaching. I'll speak with Charles Edmond of the Alcorn State Radio Network. We'll talk some Southwestern Athletic Conference baseball, and I'm sure some other topics will come up. You're listening to this week's edition of the Carlos Brown Show. Heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. I'll be right back.
Do you know what's up with Ryan? He's been acting weird and he's not hanging out anymore.
He borrowed money from me and still hasn't paid it back.
His girlfriend broke up with him a couple weeks ago. Said he was more into his sports app than her.
He may be addicted to fantasy sports. We need to get him some help.
Sports betting and fantasy sports can have serious consequences. Know somebody with a gambling problem? Get free and confidential help. Call 1-877-MY-LIMIT. That's 1-877-695-4648. Or go online to opgr.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, in the next 7 years of bigger and bigger enrollments, America's grade schools will need nearly 250,000 extra teachers besides those to fill normal vacancies. This great need, plus the growing public interest in education and improvements in schools, make elementary school teaching a more rewarding career than ever, a career that high school and college students should certainly consider. Education holds America's future, perhaps your future.
Broadcasters come into our lives on radio and TV, bringing us information and entertainment. Broadcasters are there for us, but who is there for them when they fall on hard times? The Broadcasters Foundation of America provides financial assistance to broadcasters in acute need due to a critical illness, accident, or other serious misfortune. If you know of a broadcaster on the air or behind the scenes who may need our help, please share our message. Visit broadcastersfoundation.org.
Come on, hustle, 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 hustle. Get your head in the game. Come on.
Are you setting the right example for your kids?
You need to get some confidence.
Before your child's next game, ask yourself, how would you like it if they copied your behavior?
Ad revenue has declined 15%.
Come on. You need to get some confidence.
Positive Coaching Alliance has valuable tips and tools to help our kids perform their best while keeping sports enjoyable for everyone. Positive Coaching Alliance, creating better athletes, better people.
Do you know what's up with Ryan? He's been acting weird and he's not hanging out anymore.
He borrowed money from me and still hasn't paid it back.
His girlfriend broke up with him a couple weeks ago. Said he was more into his sports app than her.
He may be addicted to fantasy sports. We need to get him some help.
Sports betting and fantasy sports can have serious consequences. Know somebody with a gambling problem? Get free and confidential help. Call 1-877-MY-LIMIT. That's 1-877-695-4648. Or go online to opgr.org.
Hello, this is Lonzo Hardy, Vice President of the SWAC Alumni Association. The SWAC Alumni Association is an organization founded in 1999 with the goal of enhancing the great legacy of excellence in the SWAC as well as preserving the athletic heritage of the SWAC. Its membership is open to former athletes as well as current and former coaches, assistant coaches, athletic administrators, referees, employees of conference member institutions, as well as fans of SWAC sports. Individuals interested in gaining membership can contact the organization's president, Roscoe Nance, at 509 Worcester Street in Herndon, Virginia, 20170. Annually, the SWAC Alumni Association holds a Legends Award in which Lifetime Achievement Awards are presented. Occasionally, a legend of the conference is honored in a roast, and annually 1 or 2 former student athletes are presented degree completion scholarship awards. Contact the organization's president, Roscoe Nance, at 509 Worcester Street in Herndon, Virginia, 20170.
The birth of legends are storied in this conference. We must never forget our rich history. We now turn our gaze to the future. The new legends will emerge. New heroes to arise. The Southwestern Athletic Conference. Be our history.
With over 20 years of experience as a lawyer, attorney Lee Van Richardson Jr. can help you with whatever your need may be. Divorce, car accidents, criminal case, wills, deeds, trust, civil suits, parent and child relationships. Contact Richardson's Law Office located at 1047 Austin Street in Hempstead, Texas. You can call them at 979-826-8008. Attorney Lee Van Richardson Jr. in Hempstead, Texas.
Welcome back to this week's edition of the Carlos Brown Show, heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. I'm joined now by Charles Edmond of the Alcorn State Radio Network. Charles, good morning to you.
Good morning, Carlos. How are you?
I'm doing fine. How about yourself?
I'm doing okay. A lot going on as far as the SWAC and a lot of stuff to talk about. Spring practice, basketball. Just there's a lot happening these days. I've kind of been out of the loop a little bit, but trying to play catch up.
I understand. Absolutely right. If we can, we will start. Well, let's just start. My last guest, Coach Van Pettaway. We were talking about history in the making in the CIT tournament, College Insight Tournament, Texas Southern University and Hampton University in the semifinals with a possibility of meeting in the finals. Get your thoughts on just what both teams have done in this historic postseason play.
Well, it is history for sure. I mean, Texas Southern obviously didn't get to the big dance. And, for them to make a deep run, to have them win some tough games on the road, especially winning at Louisiana Monroe in a triple overtime game, I mean, that just shows you how good Texas Southern is. I mean, it's just unfortunate that they couldn't finish the deal in the SWAC tournament to go to the big dance. But, they've taken advantage of the opportunities that's presented to them, and they're pushing it all the way to the limit. And I think it just shows you just how good this TSU team can be. I mean, to be honest, I was kind of surprised that they even accepted the bid, because typically, when you're not in the big dance of the NIT, these other opportunities, teams tend to turn it down maybe because of financial reasons. But I think what it's also saying is that if you have a pretty good team and you feel confident in your guys, hey, let's lace them up and play in whatever tournament that you're in, and let's just see what happens. And I think clearly Texas Southern has done that. And they really represented their school and the conference really well. And to play another HBCU in Hampton, I think it shows you their moxie as well. I mean, so I think it's good for both schools, good for the SWAC, good for the MEAC, good for HBCU basketball as a whole.
Yeah, as Coach Pettaway stated, he's on the selection committee. And I remember a few weeks ago after a segment, he was getting ready to kind of do some calling. And he specifically mentioned Texas Southern, of course, Grambling State, a close loss in that tournament. So it's another opportunity where you got a chance to play in postseason. It's kind of equivalent to if you make it to the Celebration Bowl in football, you have extra practices. It's like a mini spring practice. And then you can develop younger players and give them some practice time. So it's a win-win across the board. And I'll be smiling. I'm already proud and happy. But if both teams can advance to the finals, wow, that would just be outstanding. And it's something to build on, Charles. It's something to build on. It's got to help with enrollment, and it's got to help with recruiting.
I agree with you on that. I mean, Johnny Jones, we talked about TSU and Johnny Jones when he was hired, how he would do. I mean, I had questions, and I can admit that because, just dealing with SWAC compared to what he's dealt with in the SEC, it's totally different. But obviously, his players have bought in. And clearly, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, they should have beat Prairie View in the championship game. And they were on a roll. So I think the reality is that, maybe Johnny Jones, maybe people don't give him enough credit. He's a really good coach, even though you could make the case that he's playing with Mike Davis's players for this year. And we'll see what happens going forward as he continues to build his team. But I've really been impressed with Texas Southern and what Johnny Jones has been able to do.
Well, I'm going to give credit where credit is due. Prairie View, they were the most consistent team in the Southwestern Alabama Conference, regular season and in the tournament. And that just proved it. And also on the women's side, Southern, albeit they got demolished against Mississippi State. Oh, who is that back there? Dr. Prince. Oh, I guess the Prairie View Moan.
Oh my!
You're being hard on Southern. I mean, demolished is that's a pretty strong word.
Let's see, 103-46, but a great season. It is what it is, and I'm going to be honest, guys. When you look at it, if we use that word parity or the gap, there's a much bigger gap on the women's side than the men's. Yeah, I mean, it's a much big, and I watched 90% of that game. Southern looked the part, but guess what? You're going up against Mississippi State, who very well could be in the national championship game. It's something to build on. But that's the word that came. It was no doubt who was the better team, and everybody knew that. But it's better to get there. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm just saying, excuse me, Carlos. The question for me is, will there be, as far as SWAC women's basketball, and I might be asking for too much. I might be greedy. I probably am. We've seen these lopsided scores on the women's side when it comes to the NCAA tournament. And, and I just wonder, will it get to a point where the gap will be closed in terms of having more competitive games in the postseason, whether it's, and I know Grambling did their part last year in the WNIT, but in terms of the NCAA tournament, I mean, we've seen teams get beat pretty soundly in the NCAA tournament. Will that gap ever be closed? Unless you're not a 16, unless you're probably a 14, maybe taking on a 3, and maybe the gap maybe closes there. But it's just something I've thought about. I mean, Southern had a great run. I mean, there's no question about it. Sandy Pugh leaving, the assistant takes over, they win the whole shebang, and so that's a great storyline in itself. I would like to see some closer games on the women's side. I might be asking for too much, probably so, but that's the one thing I would like to see.
Well, let's get all of us here our opinion. I don't think it'll happen in the next 10 years. Now, maybe I'm being a bit harsh. You could have taken Southern out, put Prairie View in, put Grambling women in. It would have been a loss comparable to what Southern lost to in that area. I just don't see the gap closing anytime soon. But I've been wrong before. But it is a huge gap.
Brother,
it is a huge gap.
Brothers,
what do you say, Brother Prince?
I asked Sandy Pugh that very question after they lost to TCU in the WNIT. And I asked her, I said, man, what do you think is the bridge, the closing of the gap with this bridge? And she's made it plain and simple. We're going to have to start doing what these other conferences are doing, and that's giving these students, athletes, a stipend. Because what was interesting to me, you got a kid who's second tier, third tier, sitting on the bench and content at sitting on the bench, where they could be getting major time, making a big difference and an impact. But the difference is they have a stipend that they can help take care of some family support back home, and even help themselves while they're away at school. And she said there should be some type of formula, regardless, what your budget is, and that could help offset some of these lopsided, because it is extreme difference on the women's side. And when you look at it, it's just really the post play is what makes a huge difference when it comes to women's basketball.
Boy, that post play, And Mississippi State had a 6'5" young lady, and I had a Southern night to kind of disagree with him when I said Southern probably had the most height in the conference. And you saw what happened. Now, I know on the men's side, they talk about guard play is most important. It's important on the women's side. But that's interesting that you say that. Post play. And I don't know what Alcorn and what Prairie View has coming in, but Southern University is still getting two outstanding players, 1'6", 1'5" coming. But they're going to be freshmen. So I go back, even after the information you've just stated, I think it's still a long ways away. And, getting a stipend to work, I understand what she's saying. But I wonder how quick they can get that up and running. 5 years? 4?
That it would be a little quicker than that, I would hope.
Mm-hmm. And thus they'll be able to get a different type of player.
Well, yes.
A better. Okay.
When you look at it across the board, right? Look at it across the board. You got guys right now. Let's look at the NCAA tournaments right now. You got some guys. The only time they touch the floor is in warm-ups. Won't remote. They don't even. I don't even think they have a uniform underneath their warm-ups. And they just content at sitting at the end of the bench, where you could really go if it's about competing and getting that college experience and getting a quality education. Why not go after some of these guys, and they could be stars on our level. They could be absolute bona fide stars. But what's the difference? It's that stipend.
Well, we're going to see. I'm a doubting Thomas, I guess.
It's okay. It's okay.
I think it's still, and good point by a listener, the gap on women's side is not just HBCU and historically white colleges, HWCU. The second and third round games have major scoring spreads between the teams. There's actually a gap between HWCU Power 5 top conference teams and the ones below them in the same conference. Because I know a few years ago you saw Connecticut was beating people by 70 points, and they were not a historically black college. So I still stand by it. It is a tremendous gap, and I don't see it closing anytime soon. I hope I am wrong.
Yeah, if I can chime in a little bit on that, what Dr. Prince said, I think what he's talking about, the stipend and all that, what a lot of these schools in the Power 5 are doing is giving these student athletes a cost of attendance, which is legal. They passed that rule several years ago, and that's more money that you have to crank out. And whereas at our schools and even in the MEAC, probably they don't have the resources to be, or the funds to be able to do that. So therefore, that's the difference between getting maybe a 6'1" post and a 6'5" post like what Mississippi State has. And I do agree the biggest difference I see is in the post. We can get the 6'1", the 6 feet, and develop, but at Connecticut, at Mississippi State, they're getting 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", and they can shoot the mid-range shot, they can post up. Now, Bama State has been able to get, some post players 6'2", 6'3", Calhoun and others, but they're not as nimble as Mississippi State's post. And I think that's one of the huge differences between our schools and, let's say, a Mississippi State, the post, and just the development of those players from the time they get on that campus to where they are right now as seniors. And even you look at Mississippi State, they've got a UConn transfer. And to Dr. Prince's point, I'm sure that transfer from UConn probably wasn't getting the minutes, and she probably transferred out at Mississippi State, picked her up, and boom, you see where they are. So I think it's a huge gap. It's a huge difference. And I think, I think not only for women's basketball, but I think for all of our sports, the cost of attendance makes a difference because that's extra money in these student athletes' pockets. Whereas at our schools, it's probably not going to happen anytime soon because that's more money that they have to allocate for the athletic program.
You're talking about making gold out of straw, Rumpelstiltskin. Well, unbelievable. But at least, and we'll just see cost of attendance. Well, you can be.
And that cost of attendance could be, depending on the school, depending on where it's located, that could be several $1,000s. I don't know if it's a semester or a year. It could be per student athlete. It could be several, probably $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 per student athlete. So if you're talking about football, you add that up. You're talking about all the student athletes, you add that up, and you just see how much money is being doled out there. And this legislation just passed probably 4, 5, 6 years ago. It wasn't the case before, but to help the student athletes out, they get that cost of attendance. And that's just money that SWAC schools could do it if they had the money to do it, or if they chose to do it, that's an option. But if you don't have the money, you can't do that. So you just give the scholarship. So they get the scholarship and the cost of attendance.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas at our schools, we provide the scholarship and roll on.
And I think that's the deal breaker for why some of these guys that I call bubble players, they have the talent to be on a Power 5 roster, but because of that money difference, the Jerry Maguire epiphany, if you would, show me the money, they head toward the other side. And it's a travesty. And I know it's, playing against house money and this, that, and the other. I understand all of that. But I'm just talking about we don't have to try to match them verbatim, but some type of formula. I've always found it interesting that if you can give band members a stipend, you ought to be able to give a student athlete a stipend. That's just me. Maybe I'm being prejudiced.
No, every opinion is valued here.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I feel so warm and fuzzy because you said that.
Well, but back to the original part of this conversation, I don't think the gap will shrink anytime soon. And once again, I hope I'm wrong, but I'm hearing the COA, I'm hearing resources. I know at some schools, student athletic fee is passed on. It's a lot. It's a lot. I think you'll be judged, and I think Charles says this all the time, you'll be judged by your conference record and getting into the tournament, wins and losses. But, there are multiple factors that go into coaching, and at the end of the day,
I just had an epiphany.
Get the championship.
I just had an epiphany, Brother Brown, and I'm going to say this, and I'm going to get out of here. Just say you take some of these guaranteed games that the student athletes are going to play. Why don't you formulate some type of stipend for those guys out of that money?
A vision. An epiphany. And then why do I see a good figure, then I see a bad figure who will take it and put it in the general fund, never to see it again in that form.
And but
to your point, that would be a good thing, a great thing.
They're the ones out there getting beat up on. Let them earn something.
Mm-hmm. I've had people for years. They talk about why not. You say a stipend. I remember they put this question to Coach Richardson. Why not get a stipend for college athletes? Then it goes down to on the HBCU level. Sport, football, makes the most, bring in the most. How do you compare it to basketball? Women athletes.
Very simple formula, brother. Football cover your fall sports, your minor fall sports. Mm-hmm. Basketball cover your minor spring. Case closed.
Basketball in the SWAC. Poor attendance.
But they're making
Did you hear
money.
about UAPB?
They're
the best attendance?
Yeah, I heard that. How did that happen?
Yeah.
Charles, how did that happen?
What sport is that? I didn't even get that one. That's a football?
That's basketball.
Basketball.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at that.
Talked about it a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
It came up because of the SWAC basketball tournament, and he said you just can't expect the tournament to do well when during the regular season you have nobody coming to the conference games per se. With Southern, I could just use them for example. Their best crowd is going to be against Grambling State. We talked about that. The conference, the pre-conference or pre-SWAC schedule, you've got about 10 guarantee games. If you can get 50% of that, it'd be a miracle. But there are some exceptions, as we spoke about Texas Southern. It's a business. It's always been a business. Thus, you got to think of it in that way.
Well, I'm not surprised that UAPB got that award because they typically do draw better than most schools at home. I think they probably do a decent job in engaging the students to come to the games. The community comes out. They've had a pretty decent product as well. And, they have probably the biggest challenge of any school in the conference. And this is all sports. We all draw well when it comes to our rival games. We all know what those are for Southern, for Alcorn, for Prairie View. But UAPB is one of those schools that's just sitting out there that doesn't have a natural rival. So for them to draw as well as they are, considering they don't have a natural rival per se, their closest geographically is Mississippi Valley, but you wouldn't call that a rival in any sport. For them to get that attendance figure without that, I think it says a lot about, how the success of their program and the fact that I think internally the university and athletics does a decent job to get their students and the community to come out and support their basketball program.
Boy, getting a lot of feedback. Shall I read a couple?
Sure.
Do you guys mind?
Go.
One listener says, the ugly truth that most do not talk about is the fact that black African-American male bodies in the sport of football and basketball are paying the scholarship costs of the white European-American female players playing Olympic sports, including women's basketball. Another listener says, football is out for us. I don't believe Southern LSU will play in football. And we're going to these guarantee games in basketball. Dr. Prince, you brought up the fact that those guarantee monies or those guarantee games should be reinvested into the athletic department and or specifically the sport that they're participating in. If it's football, back to football. If it's basketball, back into the basketball program, correct?
Yes and no. Yes and no.
Okay.
And
what is the no part?
The no part is not exclusively football, but of course football will get the lion's share. But what I'm saying is if you got these student athletes putting their careers on the line as far as injuries or things of that nature, then they should be able to be a benefactor. I know they're getting scholarships, this, that, and the other, but like for football, let's just split the pie. Whatever your fall sports are, cross country, volleyball, soccer, this, that, and the other. And let's say out of a general purposes, football get 50% of that, okay? And then out of the 50%, you divvy up the other, let's say 35% amongst the other fall sports. And then whatever is for administration, that be for administration. And you can do the same thing for basketball. Basketball would cover your quote-unquote spring, anything that falls under what didn't fall under football, which are basically your Olympic sports. Doesn't take as much money to operate those, but you can make a significant, impact on those programs.
I have to think about it a little more. But I'm no director of athletics either.
Well, neither am I.
I have to think about things a little slower. That comes to me as far as that. But
well, if I may interject,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. If I may interject, based on what I've been told about how schools are funded, and I can kind of speak for Alcorn a little bit on this, and I'm guessing it may be the same at all of our schools because we are all state assisted. And Prairie View may be an exception. I don't know.
No.
But Prairie View might be an exception. I don't know. But the Vice President said no. But the way that it's been told to me in terms of how this stuff is financed and funded, it's forward funded. In other words, you get your money prior to the games being played based on your projections. That's how your budget is determined. So you determine ticket sales, you determine attendance, you determine parking, you determine tailgate. All that is factored in. And you have to submit those projections prior to you getting your money July the 1st or whenever your fiscal year starts. But and even the guarantee games is factored into that. So I think what a lot of people talk about is we assume that there's just a lump sum of money sitting out there, backward funded, if you know what I mean, where it's just sitting there, we can just grab it anytime we want. And I don't think that's the case in a lot of situations.
No.
So you're always,
I agree with that, no doubt.
Yeah. And I think so, for example, I mean, we're in March right now. You know, the next football season is going to be in the next fiscal budget. So Southern has to determine the guarantees. This is just football. I'm just saying hypothetically.
Excuse me.
How much they're going to draw on attendance, parking, and they're going to get that money up front. But if the numbers don't match the projections, then you run a deficit, and then you have to make decisions. And I think that happened with Southern several years ago, prior to Roman Banks being AD. If the numbers don't come in, so I think a lot of people have great ideas in terms of how it should be funded, athletics, but I think the reality isn't quite what the real deal is. And I think this is where I always go to. My biggest thing is let's have a discussion about what the real formula is and how it's funded. Let's talk to our fans about it. And I think if they get an understanding in terms of what the budgets are, whether it's the university budget or athletics, then I think the fans will be like, wow, we really need to help and support our programs because these are real numbers. This is the real formula. This is how it really is supposed to go. And we have to get behind these programs and support it financially. Because I think it's a lot of stuff out there in the wind, but I think the reality is a whole other case.
And I would agree 1,000%.
So as a fan then, if I look at it, when I see Edward Waters and Virginia Lynchburg in football, and then when I see in basketball, the team is going out and playing 10, we'll just say 8, 10 guarantee games. Then if we put all of this out in the open, then we won't see all of those guarantee games. And we won't see, because, fans are fickle. And you can explain it to them to left and right about this is what we need. This is the case that we're in right now. This is financially the case. You think that will make a difference to the average fan?
It can.
Who still supports and gets those what's the word I'm looking for? The ticket sales before season books, like in football, who get that early on because they need that money, and then they find out the schedule is not to their liking. They may still show up, but they're gonna complain about it.
Right.
Do you tell those people they're not loyal?
Well, I would fit in that category as a PV season ticket holder. I've been a season ticket holder for many years. I support every sport that Prairie View has to offer. But sometimes I might not like the matchups. I'm still going to, for the most part, shell out my money. Okay. Mm-hmm. But sometimes I'm not pleased with the menu, if you would allow me to put it in that form. But I want to kind of bounce off what Charles had just mentioned. And Charles, you've been around baseball a lot. I have as well. I think probably the most misunderstood sport and the most underutilized sport, and I'll speak from the SWAC perspective, is the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and I'll make it even more personal and speak from Prairie View's perspective. The challenge that you have with allowing that to become a quote unquote revenue sport, it has to do with your timing. I looked at the formula that Southern uses for baseball. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That's the format that we play in. Friday nights, all Southern's conference games are at 6 p.m. Saturdays, they're at 3 p.m. Sundays, they're at 1 p.m. That is maximizing the greatest opportunity of luring the casual fan to come out and see your product in live action. When you are scheduling games at 1, 2, 3 o'clock during a work week, it makes it extremely difficult for fans to come out and support the game. I'm talking about that casual person. Oh, there's a game going on. Let's go check it out. I think we're not taking advantage and positioning ourselves of maximizing baseball and softball opportunities. That's just me from outside looking in.
And I thought about Coach Kadar when you mentioned the 6 p.m. on Fridays, because I know you remember, and Charles, you remember conference games didn't start on a Friday, right?
No, it used to be on Saturdays and Sundays.
You remember those double headers that are painful for the posterior, sitting through 2 7-inning games?
Yeah.
And then 9. So, but I said all this to say this. Coach Kadar, I saw him out, and he asked me one time, he said, Carlos, I would like to start a Friday game. But, that wasn't a rule in the conference. And then for the Grambling game, he wanted to bring it in on a Friday. And most of the time, they didn't give him the permission to do so. But maximizing, that's a good time. And for those people who have to work and may get off at 4, it gives them some time to be able to, go home, take care of business, and then go through the traffic and then get to the game at 6, or at least right after it starts.
But it also, like you said, it gives you that casual fan, that student, that potential student athlete that will be on your campus, an opportunity to see them. But if you're playing while they're in school, out of sight, out of mind. I don't get a chance to. How do I even know that you're on the map? When did you play? Oh, I couldn't play it. I had the class at 1 o'clock. I had class at 3 o'clock. I was just getting out of school at 3 o'clock. So I'm gonna get out of school, run to the game. No. Just give me something to work with.
Good point.
Well, I also think I look at it from the fan standpoint, but I think for our conversation, we're talking about the funding and finances. You can say, fortunately or unfortunately, baseball and softball are considered, on paper, non-revenue sports. And if you look at just baseball across the country, how many baseball programs generate a profit? LSU might be one of maybe a half dozen out of 300 Division I programs that's generating a profit. So when you look at funding for, let's say, baseball, and this is what I've been told in terms of the math and the economics of it, and I think this is another thing that needs to be discussed as well, just put out there. Scholarships, the cost of your athletic scholarships is included in the whole budget. Yep. So football has 63 scholarships, depending on what the tuition is. You multiply that. Baseball's 10.7.
11.
I can't remember what 11 scholarships. Softballs. So all that, I think a lot of people might not know that those scholarships, and it's been told to me, you can waive the tuition, you can waive the scholarship to the student athlete, but that tuition has to be paid to the university from somewhere. And that's why, I read the Baton Rouge Advocate all the time. LSU cuts a check, LSU Foundation, because that's their arm for raising money, cuts a check to LSU for $6 million for scholarships. That may be just for football. I don't know if it's for the whole athletic, for all the sports. It's $6 million for scholarships. So that scholarship is covered for the student, but it still has to be paid to the university. I think all of that I think if people just kind of understood, not saying that they don't, some do, but I think you talk about non-information and misinformation. I think for me, if you just put it out there and let people absorb it and marinate over it a little bit and understand how it actually works, I do think that there will be a little more compassion from our fans. You know, the guarantee games, just like you're talking about for football, you're playing Edward Waters, or in our case, we're playing Mississippi College. We're giving them a guarantee. That's already going to be factored in the next budget, but we also have factored in what the potential attendance is going to be based on that game, or Southern playing Edward Waters, or whatever the case. That's going to be factored in. And if those numbers don't come in based on projections, now you're running a deficit, which could be a day by day or week by week or month by month deal, depending on who the CFO is of that university. They have to constantly look at those numbers. And it's just something that I think our folks, our fans, if they just know about it a little bit, I think they'll understand that we really need to support our universities, not only as a whole, but athletics as well. And I think if that happens, just the information, put it out there. I think if it happens, then I think people will truly understand and really rally behind our schools. And even the SWAC as a whole, I think all of that is a huge deal to me, because I'm learning the other side of the fence. I was kind of on the fan side for a long time, but being a part of the university and getting the knowledge and information, like it's right now, for example, it's kind of a tough deal right now for a lot of our schools, because the only revenue going on right now, basketball's just ended. You got baseball and softball, which on paper is kind of a non-revenue sport. We don't charge most of our schools for the baseball games and softball games, but yet they're still spending money, traveling. And I just think it's, I'm getting that knowledge and understanding. So I think that if our folks get it, I think there'll be a little bit more compassion about what's going on with our athletic programs. And I know people are passionate about it. They want to win. They want to do well. But I think just the reality is that unless people are putting big-time money into the athletic programs, like at LSU, like at Texas A&M, Dr. Prince knows about that.
Yes, sir.
I think that's where you'll see where you can throw money around and throw money at stuff and it'll work, because they have the money to throw around.
And I'm so glad that you brought that up. And with all that informative information and knowledge that you just shared, you said something that was very key, at least to me, that when these games that they schedule, they know that's factored in the budget, right, for the next upcoming fiscal budget year. It's called planning, forecasting, or marketing, whatever buzzwords you want to use. When you know that's what those games are, you don't wait to 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out to start planning and try to promote your games and your schedules. You constantly hitting that thing out. And I'm not talking about just a tweet and a Facebook post and all that, but you have to take advantage of your local media, your local newspaper, and you can make the money and understand if you got to understand the money. But for the most part, you have people in these quote unquote CEO positions, and they're learning on the job. And they're losing money on and leaving money on the table. I'll give you a prime example. What I hope that we don't do, but it's more than likely going to happen. You got the ESPN platform, and we love to hear the word ESPN. And when ESPN comes on, they take us and they'll put us on ESPN3, or now the new platform, ESPN Plus. Well, let's break that down. What is that? That's internet streaming. Our universities are already doing that right now. We have to provide the equipment. We have to provide the manpower. We have to provide the talent for these productions to go off, but yet we just willingly give up our broadcasting rights for $50,000 or $100,000 per school, when all ESPN does is gather up all of our content. They sell it in a package to advertisers, and they make us pay to watch our very own product when we're doing all the work. And we could be doing the very same thing with our own platforms and our own channels.
But I'll also say, Carlos, about the ESPN platform, and, you and I have talked about this for years, and I know there are some people, and I haven't heard the belly aching lately, but it was a concern a few years back about why are we even on ESPN platforms at all if they're not really putting us out there. We only have 3 or 4 football games, only a handful of basketball games. But as it's been told to me, as longtime SWAC follower Charlie Neal, who still does ESPN stuff, I think he does bowling and other stuff. And even John Grant of the Celebration Bowl talked about this. Of course, he works with ESPN in the Celebration Bowl. If the conference decided to leave ESPN, there'll be probably 5 other conferences lining up for those slots. And we can talk about ESPN. We all have our opinions on it. They're the best thing going right now. Now, could we get more money out of it? Probably so. And I think Dr. McClellan is probably going to see what he can shake out in terms of that is concerned. But ESPN is still ESPN. I mean, there are other networks that do stuff, Fox and others, CBS Sports on cable. But to get the maximum eyeballs, ESPN is still the way to go. Now, I don't know what our deal is with them in terms of, what they're putting out there for us and what we're getting, what the SWAC is getting out of it. I don't know all those details. But I think for the maximum exposure, I think ESPN, just think if the SWAC pulled out of the ESPN deal and you got the Celebration Bowl, which is on ABC, which owns ESPN. So now where do you go? The Celebration Bowl is on the upswing. So, I do think that, there could be some conversations about what ESPN has given us in terms of slots. But I think until there's a better alternative, and I do think Dr. McClellan is going to try to get the maximum out of it. But I think for right now, I think ESPN for us, for the SWAC, is the best thing going, especially if you look at the Celebration Bowl. Okay. The SWAC basketball semifinals weren't even on ESPN until I think the week prior to the semifinals. It was on the SWAC digital network, and ESPN3 picked it up, the semifinals. Of course, the championship games were on ESPNU. But at first, it was on the SDN, and then ESPN decided to pick up the semifinals for basketball. So that's a good thing. Because it wasn't scheduled at first. So I think that will help us as well.
And all of that is valid. But what I'm saying, if you just made a mention, it might have been you or Carlos, and you said, well, we getting 3 or 4 games a year. And here's the difference, in my opinion. If I got a Pepsi, a Coke, or an off-brand soda of those 2 formulas, if you would, no matter what label you put the contents in, only certain people are going to go to certain things. If I'm on ESPN, if I'm on Fox, if I'm on Howdy Doody, if I'm trying to find a Prairie View game, wherever that Prairie View game is, that's where I'm going. Wherever a SWAC game is, that's where I'm going. And I understand the love affair that we have with the big boys. But when the big boys come to town, who do they lean on? They lean on us. They lean on us. They don't even know that we exist until it's time for them to show up. And when they show up, they use us up. They take all the residual and they gone back to their big castle. And it's leaving us high and dry. It's leaving us high and dry as institutions. It's leaving us high and dry as broadcasters. It's leaving us high and dry as fans. Now, my whole point is this. If you're willing to pay $3 or $5 a month for ESPN Plus, then you ought to be willing to pay that to support your own institution sport network. Because the same folk are going to watch it. The same folk are going to watch it. And if I got to do all the labor, let me be the benefactor of my work.
Well, I agree with that, and I think that's why a lot of schools are doing their own thing. Mississippi Valley has, and a lot of schools have these YouTube channels, and so they are doing their own internal production. And I do think that's helping because it's hard to find some of our games on the big platforms. And if our schools can get some of the benefit of it financially, that would also help the internal product as well. Whether that's happening or not, I don't know. But I do think now that most of our schools are doing it, and they are using our talent. I agree with that, and I think if they benefit from it financially, I think it's a pretty good deal for ESPN. It's a pretty good deal for the school and for that local network, whether it's the PVU's Panther Sports Network or the Brave Sports Network or JSU, whatever. If they get some financial residuals out of that, I think it's a win for everybody. Because ESPN has the deep pockets to do it. It's just a matter of, if that's happening or not. I'm sure it's revenue sharing. The SWAC gets their piece, and then each school in the conference gets their piece. And then it's how they manage it from there.
And that's called a monopoly. Well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
They have a listener says the issue is with words in the contract and the amount associated with it. We have to take out the word exclusive in the contract so we can use a tier broadcasting approach. This will have and sell both ESPN and our regional and local broadcasting.
That's right. It's because you got 3 tiers of broadcasting: your tier 1s, your tier 2s, and your tier 3s. ESPN fits under that tier 1 because they're considered a major network. And then you have your tier 2 would be more of a regional network, and your tier 3 would be your local networks. Okay, and that's how the money is made, and that's how the money is lost. But if you're going to exclusively give up all of your rights to one person, then guess what? You've voluntarily put yourself back in slavery.
Got to get it better if you're going to do that. But your point is, you're providing the labor. Why not have your own rights?
Doesn't it make sense?
I can see that point.
If I'm going to go out and hunt for the meat, I kill the meat, I bring the meat home, I skin it, I clean it, I cook it. By God, I ought to be able to sit down to the table and eat it.
Mm-hmm.
There's another word for it. Y'all might not like the word that I'm going to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's called pimping.
Well, actually, I was thinking about athletic, the P word, but anyway. It has been very interesting. 11:56. Always interesting conversation. I feel like I've learned something today. If you're not careful, you will learn something. Baseball. Give you a quick look at the standings right quick. Alabama State in the East picked to win it, 8-3. Alabama A&M 7-4. Jackson State 5-5. Wow. Valley 5-5. Alcorn State 1-8. In the West, Southern 8-2. I know, a shocker last night to Prairie View. It happens. Now just come out and lay the wood out. So we shall see. Grambling State 7-5. Prairie View 5-5. Texas Southern 5-5. UAPB 1-9. Can we safely say, I'm not trying to insult anybody, but Alcorn and UAPB are struggling big time? Are we in agreement with that?
Yep, that's definitely the case. For the Braves, it's about two things, or really one thing. It's about errors right now. We're just making too many errors. We had 3 errors last night early in the game. We keep digging ourselves an early hole. We fight, but you just can't spot teams' runs. You just can't do that and expect to dig out of a hole. So I think that's the one thing for Alcorn. We had a 6-1 lead against Grambling the other night, couldn't finish the deal. So it's been disappointing. The Braves are going to be in the tournament because Alabama A&M is ineligible, so everybody in the East is going. But I think the West is probably the bigger story. The disappointment of UAPB, and I know you know Carlos James very well, and I know he's just turning cartwheels. He's probably not happy with what's going on because the Lions might not make the tournament, and how good Southern has been. That's probably the biggest story, maybe in the whole conference in any sport, just how good Southern is right now. And they have looked really well, and they got to keep it up though, because you know Texas Southern's going to be there. Grambling has struggled, so I think in SWAC baseball, I think it's all about it's all about the West, because Alabama State, you kind of expect them to be where they are, but Valley is much improved. With a limited roster, we talk about funding, limited scholarships. They don't have a deep baseball roster, and even though 11 scholarships is max, Valley doesn't have their max, and yet they're competitive. They're only a couple of games out, on the eastern side.
Well, on that note, we're out of time, literally. Appreciate you, Charles, for joining in the conversation. Also, want to thank Dr. Michael Prince, also Coach Van Pettaway. As always, keep the conversation going after the show. And make sure you tune in next Saturday at 10 a.m. for another edition of the Carlos Brown Show, heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. Until that time, peace and God bless.